Trey Small here, and today I'm going to be talking about Matrix Resurrections, and I'm going to give my general thoughts about the movie, and then I'm going to go more into spoiler content for the second half of this review. So starting out, this movie is very odd, because you're trying to figure out what's going on through the whole, basically the first half of the movie is all just confusing, and you don't know what's going on, what's real, what's not real. Very similar to the original Matrix. And there's a ton of beats in this that are very nostalgic, and they show you a lot of things that are a kind of a carbon copy of, of the original Matrix movie and stuff, which some of the callbacks I enjoyed. I liked a lot of it, but for the most part it seemed very forced and a little overused, meaning like, hey, this is the Matrix, this is the Matrix, this is the Matrix, like through the whole movie. And I feel like it got a little overwhelming at times. The action in this is pretty, I don't know, it feels very, just kind of like generic. There's nothing really special about it. There's like some fighting, there's punching, and then there's kicking and things like that, but there's martial arts and stuff, but it's not quite to the extent and, what the originals had, where they were, very outlandish, where they're running on the walls and jumping and flipping and all the kinds of fun, crazy, unrealistic fight scenes. And in this, they didn't really have that. It was mostly just like, oh, these people are punching each other now, and then they're kind of doing a little bit of a kick and a block, and it felt weird. It felt slow, I think, in a lot of parts. For a lot of the fight scenes, I was just like, I just don't feel like this is, the Matrix. It felt very different. The special effects in this movie, for the most part, they looked really, really good, but there are certain things that, it looked odd to me. Sometimes it looked odd. But for the most part, there was a lot of cool things in this. That there's a couple cars that blow up and stuff in this, and the way they did it looks really cool because it's in the Matrix, and it integrates, like the digital code and green and stuff that's in the Matrix, and I think the effect looks really, really cool. And then there's some other stuff that also has that effect built into it, and I think that looked really, really cool. There's a few CGI characters. I think the design and the idea of these characters looked really, really cool. I liked how it looked, how it worked. It just looked like a fun effect, and I think it looked pretty cool. So the dialogue in this movie is, to me, it came across as really stiff and strange. I don't know. There's a lot of lines in this that I was like, that feels very weird, robotic, and almost like the actors were forcing themselves to say these lines, and it just, it came across as weird. There's a lot of stuff that I was like, that's not great dialogue at all. And a lot of the lines, like, my wife and I were watching it, and they'd say something, and then we'd jokingly say something in response to them, and then that would be the next line. So we were predicting what people were going to say, so I guess the lines are kind of predictable and generic. I don't know, it just felt weird. There's several parts in this movie where they try and come across as like jokey, and it's supposed to be funny or whatever. It's just not. Like, it doesn't do a good job at being funny at all, and I feel like it was kind of really dull. So moving into spoiler content, to talk about the story a little bit more in depth. If you don't want to know everything yet and you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie and then come back. Okay, so it's, 60 years later to start off. 60 years later. We don't know that until later, but it's 60 years later, and I think that by itself is dumb. I thought that was stupid. I'm like, why in the world is it 60 years? Was there any specific reason? I don't know if they mentioned something that, like, this kind of thing had to happen. I don't know. 60 years felt weird and strange, because Neo and Trinity are still they're like 20 years older, but that Niobe is like an 80-year-old woman or something, and then everybody else is kind of like long dead and things like that. And I'm like, what? Why? Just say it's 20 years later or 30 years later or something. Why did it have to be 60? Like it didn't make any sense to me, because why are Trinity and Neo still young? Well, for the most part, they're 20 years older, but they're younger than 60 years older. I don't know if they explained that. Said, oh, the pods kept them young somehow, which I don't understand how or why. That was weird. I just didn't get it, and that was dumb. Something else that I was kind of weirded out by and didn't understand was that the machines saved Neo and Trinity at the end of the other movie. I don't understand why they did that. I don't know if they explained it. Like, it's just like there was so much in this that they either explained in a line, like one single line or something, and then they just moved on from it, or if it was like a core part, or they just didn't even mention it at all. I don't know. But they were said that the robots saved Trinity and saved Neo and hooked them up into the new version of the Matrix, which I thought was weird. Like, why would they save them? They both were dying, and well, she was dead, so why save them in the first place? I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. The way they did it was like it was a huge return back to the Matrix sort of thing, but it didn't feel like it was a big grand story. It felt like it was literally like a sequel, like a direct follow-up to Revolutions. Like it was weird. Like it felt like it was trying to be bigger than it was. The people from IO, they go and they find out that Neo is still alive and they try to get him out of the Matrix or whatever. Okay, interesting. They're going to save him, and then they get him up, and then they're like, we need to get Trinity out too. So they're trying to get Trinity out. But the thing is, they have so much else in there where it's like, oh, he's all confused and he doesn't know what's real. He's a video game developer, which I did not really care for. I thought that was kind of weird, but whatever. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to think about this movie. I just can't understand why it was the way it was. Like, it felt like if it was made a couple years after Revolutions, it could have worked better, where it could have been a little bit more contained story, because it felt like the actual plot of the movie was super basic. I feel like they tried to overcomplicate it with Neo not knowing what's real and what's not real, and it didn't come across as like, oh, this is a huge return to the Matrix. It felt like, oh, you're back in the Matrix. So here's all the nostalgia from the original Matrix, but for such a small story. Because the original Matrix was like, there was a grander plot where he was the one. He was supposed to save all of humanity and end the war with the machines. The whole plot was, you're gonna get all this stuff. You're gonna wake up, red pill, blue pill. You're gonna do all this stuff. And the end goal was to get Trinity out. Okay? I obviously, yes, you want Trinity to come out, but at the same time, like, all this build up for, oh, you're going to save Trinity. And they ended it with them, they woke up, now they can control the stuff in the Matrix. Trinity and Neo are basically the one, or now the two, or whatever. And now they have all the power and stuff in the Matrix, so they can control the Matrix, they can change the Matrix. So what are they going to do with that? If they are going to even continue it. They may not even continue it, I'm not sure. But basically they control the Matrix, so it's like, okay, are they building to something bigger? But if they're not, what was the point of the entire movie? Because it's like, yes, the machines are still at war, but it just didn't feel like it was a large-scale ending. The point of the movie was to get Neo and Trinity out, and then because of that, now they have control of the Matrix, and they can do a lot more damage, and even destroy the machines once and for all. I feel like this should have been a stepping stone, a small stepping stone to the finale of the entirety of the Matrix saga or whatever, where it's, they're taking down the machines once and for all. And I feel like this should have been a movie that was made like 15 years ago. Had a little bit more simpler of a plot, because the plot in its core is simple. And it was trying to be complex like the original was. but it just wasn't. I feel like it should have been something a little bit more simple and then moved into, you know, something a little bit more grand for the next movie. If that even happens, because now that they have control of the Matrix, they literally could try to wake everybody up or control the power output of it and really hurt the machines, because the machines were already hurting for power, and now they're really going to be hurting for power if Trinity and Neo, you know, control the Matrix. It felt like two different movies. Like, I think I liked the second half. The story of the second half, I think I liked better, because it was a little bit more straightforward and it was a rescue mission. I thought that was really cool. But the first half of it felt like it was trying to build to something bigger, and it didn't. Like, it felt like it was the first half to a different movie and then the second half to a different movie. I feel like if they started out the movie with something smaller and then built into, oh, we need to save Trinity and get her out of the Matrix, that I think could have worked. But they started way up here. They started huge, and then they kind of ended with this instead of starting here and then getting bigger, and then in the next movie make it even bigger. But they didn't. I don't think they're going to do that, or if they do, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see if they even continue this. Depends on how, you know, the box office goes. It just felt like it should have been more. Something that I did like the first half of it was very, very intriguing, where I was like, is this real or is this not real? Is Neo literally just crazy? I'm still wondering. This whole thing could just be because this guy's crazy. We don't know. He could have created all this in his mind. Like, I feel like if it started out very differently, if you started out with, you know, Bugs and then the new Morpheus or something, you started out with them doing their whole thing. But the thing is, their goal is to find Neo. And they do, but it's not about him being woken up. He's like maybe like the architect type of character or something, where he's either imprisoned or like they're using him to, you know, build the Matrix or something in different ways. That would be interesting. So they get him, and then he helps them try to get Trinity out, and that could have been the story of it, where it's literally a whole thing is a rescue mission, instead of it starting out where it's like, is this real? Is this not real? I don't know. It was strange. Like, the way it all played out was strange. But the second half was a cool rescue mission thing. It was like, okay, they're going back into the Matrix. They're going to go fight these guys. And then, you know, they're going to get Trinity. And I really enjoyed the last fight, basically, or the last action scene, I should say, where they're running or driving away and stuff from the hordes of bots. I think that felt really, really cool. Loved the effects of them like jumping off the buildings and stuff. When they hit the ground, like, it just turns into the digital code and stuff. I thought that was really, really cool. And then the cars blowing up at that spot were really, really cool. Loved how they did that. But I feel like overall the story was just, it tried too hard to be something different, and it just didn't, because where the story should have naturally gone from that point, this wouldn't have been a big story, where the other movies were like, you're the one, you're the chosen one or whatever, and you're going to save humanity. This is literally like, wake up, Neo, you got to get out of the Matrix and get Trinity out of the Matrix, where it was playing itself off as like, we are back in the Matrix. And it's just like, I don't know, it felt like a smaller story that was treating itself big. A few things that I didn't like that they kind of changed from the original movies was bullet time. I did not like what they did with the bullet time. I thought it was interesting that Neil Patrick Harris, I think he was the architect or something, I'm not sure, he was controlling the bullet time instead of Neo. But I absolutely hated the weird like distortion effect that he had, where he was like, you know, clipping like crazy or whatever, jumping around, like, you know, he was shaking weird and stuff. I did not like that at all. I thought that was dumb, and it looked weird, and it was hurting my head. I think it would have been cooler if he was just walking smoothly through, you know, everybody's like, you know, super, super slow movements. I also did not like Smith as much, because his character was completely different than he was in the previous movies. He just acted completely different, and I feel like that was kind of meh. Overall, I think I liked this movie more than I was expecting to. like there were certain things that I enjoyed about it. I think I would give it probably a 6 out of 10. Just, you know, the fact that it was enjoyable to watch. I can see in a few years revisiting it, I think I can really enjoy it more, especially if you watch it with the original 3. It's a very, it's a good 4th movie in what could be like 5 or 6 movies or something, where there's clearly more to the story. Like, I think there could be more of a war between the machines and humanity in what could be the next one, and I feel like that could be where the story goes. If you liked my review, please like the video, subscribe for more, share it to somebody, and comment down below what you thought of The Matrix Resurrections. Yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else to say. Yeah, okay, well, goodbye, and, you know, Merry Christmas.